Let's talk about the last topic on the evaluation of trade deficit, whether that is equal to the being ripped off, being unfairly treated by all the trade partners. According to Trump, everybody is trying to rip off the U.S. and then now it's time to fight back. So that's one of his core campaign point. And unlike the other professional politicians who made a lot of promise during the campaign, Trump is trying to do something different. He is trying to realize or practice, implement all the promises that he made during the campaign. The trouble is that a lot of his promise, a lot of his argument during the campaign, it's not sustainable. It's not really the truth. So the stronger he want to implement them, the worse off. So that's the country is better off. Like I said, the country is better off without Trump in the White House because he's economic policies and other policies, immigration policies, have been really disturbing for the status quo of in this country's history. So, but here I've been thinking about this, and then I thought about many things, and then finally I come out with the 7 point that I want to argue. The first one is that a lot of, when I first check on the AIs, and then I've seen some numbers. For example, the one particular argument from Grok says that, overall, the trade deficit, it's not damaging. In fact, high trade deficit, high importation taxes, it's actually damaging the economy. One of the most important figure they give to me is that if you think about this U.S. history after World War II, essentially after 1975 to especially 1980, the U.S. has been with the trade deficit all this time. It's almost like become a fixation of the U.S. economy. Okay. However, if you look at the real per capita GDP, there you can see that it has been increased more than 2.5%, 2.5 times. For example, basically in the late 70s, early 80s, the per capita GDP, basically income, is about $30,000. By the end of 2025, we are growing to almost $80,000. So the number that the detailed number may be different. Where I heard some because I usually try to check at least two AIs to confirm each other. The number comes out to be slightly different, but in the trend, yes, the U.S. economy has been growing really fast. However, does that mean that it's caused by trade deficit? No, I don't think you can say that. The one number that we must keep in mind is that the U.S. economy, the trade, meaning the import and the export, adding together, the trade volume only accounts to like 25%, 20 to 25%. So this is much smaller than countries like Germany, which is like 80% of GDP, and also South Korea, a lot of much higher. So that reminds us that drawing a causal conclusion whether it's in favor of the free trade or in favor of protectionism, it inevitably get into the problem, because either way, we cannot have a clear cut, transparent, quantified argument either way. Whether you're supporting free trade or supporting the protectionism like Trump is. So that's given that, given this, cautioned argument, we do have a seven. Seven means that in China it means that this means seven. The 7 point that we can make. First one, that the other things that we consider the other things equal. If everything else stays the same, and also they are equal, then high importation taxations will basically increase consumer cost, and the same argument is that it will be decrease in the consumer welfare. That's probably the clearest subject to little debate, because if you consider this, assuming everything else is the same, then high deficit will eventually be paid at most by the consumers. First by importers, but then by consumers. Okay, so that's one thing. It's a very clear, very subject to little debate. Okay, the only thing, in fact, the only benefit, most quantifiable benefit, is that the importation taxes will increase the revenue of Washington. So other things equal, that the Treasury Department will have more money to be disposed of. So that's the first thing. Very little debate on that. The second thing is that in terms of the industry, in terms of the innovations and the supply side, it's pretty clear, except that if you have high importation taxes, I try to use the word import taxes instead of a tariffs, because tariff is kind of hard to say it. But anyway, the import taxes, higher import taxes, may be useful temporarily to defend your infant industry. Only temporarily, that is important. If you keep the high import taxation, and then your mission is not really protecting the infant industry. Basically means that the new industry that this country is like basically in the U.S. in before 19th centuries, early 20th century, because by the end of the 19th century, U.S. already overtook UK, become the biggest economy. But before that, U.S. used to be a farming countries, and then with the high import taxes, it's a protection of a domestic industry, and that works. Okay, but so basically, if you take that protection of infant industry away, you just look at the net effect of high import taxation, it tend to produce protectionism, which tend to decrease the innovations. But in US today, I want to add one thing to it, because we happen to have like an AI revolution. So with the cost of import increase, and then especially with some sectors and industries, companies are trying to reduce the human resources, the cost of human resources. That's why you see companies laying off a lot of workers. Okay, so that's one thing. The second point that I want to say, that high import taxation can be bad for industry. The last point for today is um, to directly addressing the Trump's argument that the trade deficit is a sign that the U.S. has been ripped off by the trading partners. That's basically it's very little debate on this. If you ask most scholars, most economists, they would agree that the trade is it's not a zero sum game, meaning that you win, I lose. If if you have a trade deficit, that means you're a loser. And if you have like a China, you have a trade deficit, trade surplus, then you're a winner. That's not how the trade works. So let's stop here. I have a four more point next time.